It is now time to elevate.
Time to motivate them.
Let's engage. It is now time to elevate.
Hey everybody, thanks so much for joining in for another episode of Engage, Motivate, and Elevate with me, your host, Monet Fox. I wanted to take a quick minute before we brought in our next guest to just talk about really what the show is all about. I know that we had a psychotherapist on our first show, then we had a visual artist, and today we're bringing in a finance and real estate expert. But the reason why I'm bringing in this diverse group of guests is really because my goal around this podcast or this webcast, however you may be tuning in, is to really rebuild and reimagine our community. And that involves men, that involves women, that involves our youth. It involves us feeling better through our mental health and awareness, building that up. It is financial literacy, understanding what that means. It is eating well, healthy, developing, or at least understanding what an alkaline-based diet is and what the benefits of those things are. Really exploring what our creative sides are, discovering our passions, realizing who we are, not just as individuals, but as a culture, as a community. So in Boston, we don't really have a central location where there isn't a strong urban community, especially not being supported by other people in the community. So my goal is to really create a platform, around education, around all of the things that I mentioned before, for us to all understand where our resources lie, who in our community is really leading the community, trying to help with it and grow out our community through these different ways. And so I hope you enjoy it. I hope you continue to stay tuned in. I feel like we have so much more to talk about. Every interview, when I finish, everyone says the conversation is not over. So I'm sure that these people will be coming back. And I want to invite you all to just stay tuned in. Thank you so much and get ready for the show. Hey, everybody. So thanks a lot for sticking it with us. Right now, I'm going to introduce my good friend, Steve Gousby. Welcome to the show, Steve.
Thank you. How are you today?
I'm doing well. So Steve, for everyone that doesn't already know, Steve is a credit repair specialist and he's a real estate expert. So we're going to be talking to Steve today about how, why credit repair is so important, what credit really means to us. And even give us some tips and tricks around the real estate market and all the trends that are going on and things like that are happening right now. So before we get started, Steve, just to let everyone know a little bit about you, you want to tell us a little bit about your background, some of your influences growing up, where you grew up, some of your childhood influences. We want to really get a good backstory so people have a sense of who you are.
Okay. We'll start from there. Grew up in Orchard Park. 25 Adams Street, of course. I'll never forget. Back then, a lot of us grew up in the hood, but, we didn't know what poor was, growing up back then. But it was a hell of an experience coming up because, it taught me as I grew older, as a child, that it doesn't matter where you come from, number one, and that, of course, there's so many things out there that if you want it, as long as you put your mind to it, you can achieve anything you want. So that was one of the big things growing up in Orchard Park for me.
Right. Now, were there people I know that there's tons of challenges, for those you don't know, Orchard Park was a project where, me growing up in Dorchester, I used to hear a lot of different things that were going on in Orchard Park. I wasn't directly involved in any of that stuff, but you grew up in that time,
Yeah.
Probably around the same age. So you grew up around that. What are some of the challenges that you were faced with directly, and who was kind of around you to help to guide you through that, to help you navigate through those things?
Well, back then I call it the real Orchard Park. It's Orchard Gardens now. So it was different. It wasn't like how, as far as what it became when the gangs kind of moved in there. Right. We didn't have all of that when I was growing up in there. Moms and pops, we got out of there, actually just in time. Right. There's no telling where I would be, to be honest, if that never happened, because it kind of happened like right after we moved out of there. And, we had our friends. We fought, but we were friends. So it wasn't like, the next day, oh no, I'm gonna get him, I'm gonna shoot. It was nothing like that. We were, We would have our little fist fights. We were probably the only blacks in the projects that actually played, or in the state, therefore, that played hockey. You know, okay. Hockey, as you know, for the most part, it's, you know, it's not like basketball and football where a lot of us are represented. Right. And so it was stuff like that. We played hockey, we played basketball, we played baseball. We had a baseball field right there in the project. We played on teams. And that took up a lot of our time. That kept us out of trouble, even though we still found our ways to get in a little bit of trouble, but not enough where it guided us in the wrong direction, you know? So as far as influences, for me, I always had that love for music. So that's kind of where it started for me. As you know, I DJ as well, and I also worked in radio for a number of years. And
we work for the same station.
Yes, that's where it started for me. So for me, as far as influences, it was the radio, listening to WRBB, guys like Jay Dixon, Rick Anderson, and, you know, the Chocolate Cowboy. You know, there's a number of folks that work there, Mark Harris and Wallace T, Rusty the Toe Jam, Skeeter. Used to follow all of those dudes. And, you know, I was young and snuck into some of the parties. And it was a great influence on me because, you know, that's how I learned how to mix. And my first mix, tell you a funny story, was taking a tape deck, playing a song, recording a song, taking a tape deck, hitting the pause button, recording it again from a different point where the beats matched up. And that's how I did my first mix, actual mix.
Started it off.
Yeah, how I started it off.
Yeah.
And that was the biggest influence for me. Back then they had this thing, I'm telling my age now, but back then they had this thing called the summer thing. So the summer thing would come to the park, and there would be bands out there. And I know a lot of y'all remember that, folks that are watching. They had the Soul Train truck. So whenever the Soul Train truck came, it was like a big party. So, you know, those were the influences in my life. And, of course, Mom's always was a great influence, and Pops. And, you know, we grew up in there. And, again, we didn't know what poor was. We were poor. And if someone even told us that we were poor, I was like, whatever. You know, it didn't matter to us.
Right.
Yeah, what are you talking about? Because we were having fun. We enjoyed our lives back then. And it was a big time for me, you know, back then.
I love that story. I want to give a shout out to Rick Anderson and to Rusty. Those are the only two that you mentioned that I actually know.
And Rusty probably don't even know that I came up.
I want to get him on the show. I want to try to get Rusty on here, so we'll see. Rusty, if you watch it,
remember the party at the Boys Club.
Yeah.
I remember the party at the Boys Club with Rusty and Skeeter. I remember going to that party, man, vividly in my mind. I'm looking at him right now.
That's so funny.
So yeah, Russ.
Yeah, Russ, get on the show, Russ. We're gonna call Rusty. No, but I love that. And one of the things that is really important, as you know, the show, the real purpose is to really bring community back to, you know, the way that it was, you know. And so these things that you're talking about, this whole Soul Train or the what was it called? Because you're a little bit older. What was the name of the event?
Don't act like you don't know. It was the summer thing.
The summer thing. Right. So things like that.
By the city.
Yeah, we were talking about that. Even like the Kite Festival, different things that just used to happen around the city. Roxbury Day, like where the community was actually celebrated. Everybody came out, and you know, there were barbecues and music and just really great times. This is what we need. You know, this is what made men feel proud to be, you know, heads of their household, made women feel proud to be a part of their family, made children feel proud within who they were. These were the things that really, I feel, helped to establish that and solidify that, especially growing up around this time. So you mentioned DJing and how that, you know, how you really got started in the whole music industry. When did it transition over into finance or money? Because now you do credit, you do credit repair, you're a specialist. Let's talk about that first. Let's kind of break that out with your credit repair services. Let's talk about what types of services you offer and what kind of led you into that whole realm.
Okay, so the credit thing, you know, you would think I planned that, you know, months or even a year ago, but it really didn't happen that way. So as a real estate broker, which we can talk about as well, you know, I send a lot of my clients to get their credit repaired to this company out in Brockton. And so, you know, the guy's a good friend of mine as well. And he does a really good job. So it got to the point where a lot of my clients would call me and say, well, I can't reach him. He hasn't called me back. Have you heard from him? And this was happening consistently. So it got to the point I tried to call him, and I didn't get a call back. And so, he just really got busy. And when you get overwhelmed and when, you're good at something, the phone's ringing and you just can't get back to everybody. So I know that's what the issue was. So I just decided that, okay, let me see what's going on here. Let me do the research. I looked into, the light bulb kind of just went off. Is this something I could do? Let me do the research. So I did that. And I decided, I'm going to give this a shot. I did the training. I bought the software, got the website, and, long story short, because of the fact that he was unreachable and I had nowhere else to turn for my clients, I decided to do it myself. And this happened like in January, right after the new year. And it took me about maybe 3.5 weeks to really get it up and running and to finish with all the training and get the certification and all of that. So that's how that came about.
Yeah.
It just kind of just happened. When I looked at it, did the research, the light bulb went off, like I just said. And
yeah.
Man,
what are some of the services? What are some of the services that a person can expect to receive from you if they were to come in and get some sort of counseling from you? Like, what specific things do you help them with?
Well, the thing that I do most is I help folks repair their credit. And then once it's repaired, I help them maintain it, because there are some tricks that we all walk around with our credit cards and we go to the stores and we buy all these different things. And there's some things we need to keep in mind when we do that. One is, you need to keep your usage down to at least 25, no more than 30% of what your limit is. If you do that, your scores will never go down unless you do some other things like, you pay your cards late, or, you just kind of ignore your credit, period. So you don't want to do that. And, at the end of the day, it's one of the most important things in our lives, because we need credit for everything. Right. I mean, from, buying a house, buying a car, you want to rent an apartment. Well, guess what? They're pulling your credit there. You want to start a business. A lot of folks think you can just do Cash App and Square, where you can, but in some businesses where there are guidelines, you can't. You got to get a merchant account. Well, guess what? They're checking your credit for that. You want a job at McDonald's, they're checking your credit. So everything. You need it for everything, literally. And I figure because of that, 79% of the credit reports have issues on it anyway. So that's a lot. You're talking out of 10 people, 8 people got issues on their credit, whether they know it or not. Right. Even folks with good credit have issues. So, I thought about all of that, and even talking to some folks, mentioning it to friends, well, there's a million companies out there. Yeah, there are. But I just figured I don't think any of them can do it like me. Yeah. You know what I mean? And, I don't let numbers bother me in terms of how many people are already doing it or whether I can do it. I just figure once I become passionate about something, once my head is there, I'm going for it, win or lose. Right. Some things don't stick, but for the most part, I feel that if you put your mind to it, no matter what it is, there's a lot of folks out here doing real estate. There's a million people doing that, but there's a lot of money out there too for everybody. So it's not like, because there are a million people out there, it makes it a bad job to get into. That's absolutely not true.
Right. No, I agree with you for sure. One of the things that I find personally with credit that I didn't necessarily understand, and I think it's important for people that, don't have this understanding, and I'm sure that you teach this in your course, when you go and apply for a car loan or a home, which is even a bigger deal, even if you are able to get it, even if you're able to get the loan, your credit affects how high of an interest you're paying, the length of the loan. Like, so your credit doesn't just impact whether or not you can get something. It impacts how much you're going to ultimately end up paying back.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people kind of don't understand that. They feel like, oh, well, if I
a lot of people don't. They figure as long as they can get the loan, their credit is good.
Right.
And that's not necessarily true. It just means that your credit is okay enough where we'll give you the loan, but we're going to make tons of money off of you because your credit isn't great. Right. So we're going to give it to you at a higher interest rate. that high interest rate, if you're buying a house, can result into hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending on the type of loan and how much you're paying and all that and the interest rate.
Over the original, like the final price, what he's saying to everybody is you're paying an extra $100,000 over the price that you agreed to pay through the duration of the loan. So
a lot of folks don't understand that.
They don't understand it.
$325 for a house and end up paying an additional $100,000 in interest alone because of your credit score.
Yeah.
So the difference is if you have a good credit score, I mean, it's that much of a difference. You're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, whereas with a lower interest rate, banks got to make their money. It'll cost you much, much, much less.
And even if you're working to repair your credit and you have a loan, once you've paid it for a certain amount of time, and I don't know what, maybe a year or so, I'm not sure, but you can actually refinance without extending the life of your loan and get the interest reduced, right? If your credit gets better. Is that accurate?
Well, normally when you refinance, most banks try to get you to do it for another 30 years. So it's not like, unless things do change, so it could be different now. I haven't done mortgages in a while, but usually it's another 30 years. But if you cut into your loan, like let's say you paid $300,000, that's what it was financed for, $300,000, and half of it is paid off. It doesn't make sense to do another 30 years, refinance for another 30. You might as well go into a 15, or if you can do less, then go for that.
Yeah.
And then that way, that'll be more to your advantage. But I don't think you can refinance, like you could be in year 25 and then pick it up from year 25 again. On a 30-year loan. So if that makes sense.
I think I understand it. I was in my mind, I was referencing like a car loan. So when you started talking about a house, I'm like, okay, let me think of longer term. But I the point really is that even if you have a loan, there is a benefit to going and getting some level of credit counseling so you understand a smarter way to be spending, a smarter way to even be investing, the types of interest rates that you should be looking or expecting to get based on your credit. These are all things that I feel like going into a situation are really a key. But if you're already in a situation, they're still super important to really understand so that you can kind of get in front of your own situation and take charge of it.
Yeah. I mean, the key really is understanding how credit works. If you know how credit works, and I swear everyone really should know this, but people don't. They walk around with their cars and they spend, not understanding how it affects their score. And then if you want to go purchase something, then it affects that. So, knowing how the payment history affects your credit, the usage, the different types of credit cards you have and types of loans, all of that is key. New credit, all of that calculates to, they use that to calculate your credit score. I should probably go back and explain that. I can explain that in better detail. But it's very important. If, you got 5-6 credit cards, and that's the thing about folks who do have good credit when they use it and it goes bad at times. People with good credit, they kind of like psychologically, they walk a different way. They feel a different way. They're very confident and they kind of use it loosely. So, there's nothing wrong with that as long as you understand what affects your credit score in the long run when you do use it. If you're paying everything off, of course, that's always good. But if you're spending over 30% or even 25%, I usually try and start there. But when you get to 30, you definitely don't want to go over 30% usage of any credit card because that's when your scores start to decrease.
Right.
Yeah. And then, of course, you got late payments. Folks, it's one thing to be a couple of days late after the due date. They'll just give you a $25 fine. On your credit card, or not a fine, but they'll charge you an extra $25.
Yeah.
But when you go 30 days late, that normally kills credit scores. It'll drop it anywhere from 100 to 120 points. And
wow.
That normally kills a credit score. So if you just have like one late, sometimes people are 30 days late. Oh boy, well, I just got to deal with it. No, call your credit card company, especially if you have a history of paying on time, and that's probably the only blemish on your credit report. Just give them a call and say, I inadvertently, forgot to pay it. I thought
Right.
the audit, or whatever story you want to come up with, as long as you're nice about it, they'll 9 times out of 10 will remove it with no problem. So just a little nugget there.
Yeah, no, that's great for people to know. I mean, I didn't know that, so I think that's super. That's
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a good thing. So let's shift over into the real estate, because I know you've been doing that for almost as long as you've been DJing for a really long time.
Yeah.
I worked under Steve for a little bit as a real estate agent. He's been doing it for, I don't know how many years, but I know more than 10, like a really long time. Super knowledgeable. So with the real estate, and now we're in this social distancing thing. We were kind of talking offline a little bit about the fact that real estate is still popping. People are still going to buy houses.
Still is.
It's still a great thing. So talk to us a little bit about real estate, I guess, in the sense of, why it's so important, why home ownership is even important for the urban community. Why should we even be paying attention to it?
Well, first, I've always said they should be teaching this in school. And it's important because, as my mother always says, we all need a place to live. The one thing, you better make sure you have is a place to lay your head. So, we spend a lot of time at home. When we go to sleep, we're at home. You know what I mean? So when we eat, we're at home. You wake up, you're at home. So it kind of makes sense that we should, if we're spending all that time there, why not invest into it when you look at it, when you think about it, right? I mean, it's your place where your personal business. That's where you live.
Yeah.
So it only makes sense that if there's money into that and you can make money off of that, and that's what a lot of people, we don't grow up thinking that living in a house, we can make money off of living in a house. Homes appreciate, no matter what you pay for it, they appreciate over time. And so with that being said, and I just want to go to something real quick. Back when the market went bad, there was this young lady, I'm not going to put a name out there and put a business out there, but there was a young lady who came to me. She was looking for a house. There were a lot of foreclosures out there. And she was in her early 20s, young, aspiring. She wanted to buy a house. And so I sold her this 2-family during the time when the market was bad. I think she bought it for, I want to say like $225, $245. And talked to her not long ago. She's thinking about selling. And the house right now is worth about well over $750,000. So this is a young lady who bought, I think she might have been 24, maybe 25, somewhere around that age, who bought in early 2009, 2010, I forget which year exactly. The house appreciated that much. So she wanted to buy a home for a family. She was married with a child, wanted to buy a home for a family. She bought a 2-family, and just living in that house, paying a mortgage, she just made several $100,000 easy. Now, I'm sure she had to put some money in to fix it up, but it wasn't the amount of money that appreciated over time. So it's a win-win for her and her family, and that's what real estate is all about at the end of the day. So if you understand how it works and how it can make you money, why not learn that at an early age? And, we should, every child should grow up knowing about real estate.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
Those are the 2 most important things, I think, in my opinion, that if we all know, we'll be that much ahead, with everything in life, period.
No, I agree with that. I think one of the misconceptions around real estate is, or one of the fears, I guess, is the down payment, getting that money up. So people will decide to rent because they can't get the money to get the down payment up. But there are all kinds of programs. Like, what would you recommend for somebody that's in that type of situation, that wants to do it, but doesn't really know how to get started from a finance perspective?
Well, one, you got to save your money and cut down on spending your money, except for the things that you absolutely need to spend money on. You need to do that. There are programs out there. There are programs through the city that will help you come up with a down payment. And then there's programs like FHA where it's 3 to 3.5% down. So you have to you definitely have to put something into it. No one's going to take a risk on you without you putting out some money and taking a risk on yourself as well. So you definitely have to save your money, and there are programs out there, number one. But number two, just like with anything else, with credit, do your research as well. Learn what it takes to own a home. Learn the things that you're going to need to know to be able to, with the upkeep of a home, the heating system needs to be maintained. The roof needs to be maintained, the pipes, just little things like
taxes. You got to pay your taxes on your property.
You got to pay your taxes. So with anything that you want to do, you really need to do the research and understand how it works. Become that expert. If you're going to be and make an investment, especially of a large amount like that, become the expert so you can keep it. Unlike what happened back in 2009 with, the banks doing pretty much giving out loans to any and everybody. Didn't matter what your credit was. Didn't matter what your history was as far as how you paid your bills. It didn't matter. They just gave it to you. And so a lot of people got into the business, knew nothing about owning a home. And a lot of folks, because of that, lost it. Not only were they not able to afford it anyways, but they didn't even know what it took to own a home and all the other things that come with it, the bills, the light bills, the gas, and the taxes, like you said. So educate yourself. And if you're looking for someone to help you, of course, realtors are an excellent source, like myself and yourself, soon to be. And, you want to become very, very knowledgeable about what it is that you're getting into, first of all.
Right. No, I agree. I mean, knowledge is power when it comes to making such a large investment, something that can impact your family in a very positive way if you are knowledgeable, but also in an extremely negative way, it can impact you because, like you said, in 2009, when the market crashed, a lot of people were losing their homes. A lot of people were forced to move back either with their parents or, other family members just to try to keep themselves afloat. And that's a devastating situation, for anybody to have to go through. So really make sure, I think it's super great advice to make sure that you get the information around it. And, Steve, you recommend other realtors, but, we have you on the show for a reason. I definitely encourage people to reach out to Steve and get this information. I mean, he's just a wealth of knowledge. He's helped me a lot in my past. I also have a real estate license that I need to reinstate, but I've learned so much from him, and I think that you asking questions and you wanting to learn more is really a great start for any of you watching or listening in that want to get on this path. Now, to that extent, Steve, what do you say to people? Like, how does someone that has no idea about real estate from a realtor's perspective, what advice would you give them to get involved in the business? If they want to come into the business itself and start actually selling, what are some of the steps that they need to take to do that?
Well, if you want to do that, there are plenty of real estate schools out there. Now, back when I took my test, you couldn't take the test online. You couldn't really, I don't think you were allowed to do it online as well. You had to do a certain amount of hours in class. So right now, I believe they changed the law on that. So double check on that, because you might be able to just do everything online. And of course, with COVID-19, I'm pretty sure that's probably the case right now. But you definitely want to take up a real estate class where you're taught everything from A to Z. And then once you finish the class, if you want to go ahead and get your license, which I'm sure you will, don't just take the test right away. A lot of folks do the class and then they try and go take the test. You're going to fail. You're not going to pass. It's a lot of stuff. You can't learn it all in class. I don't care how much of a sponge you think you are. You can't learn it all. And with the test, it was, I think when I took it, it was 130 something questions or something like that. And probably about 90 something or 100 of them were, the regular exam. And then you got the state part you have to take. So you definitely want, and to be honest with you, I studied, it took me, probably about 4 months before I decided to take the test, because I wanted to make sure I knew everything. I didn't want to have to go take the test a dozen times.
Right.
So that's one of the things, if you're going to do it, do not go ahead and take the test right after you finish the course. Take your time and study. I had cue cards. I had it on my phone when I got in the car, and if I was at a light, and you can't do this now, I would peek at the phone, and, I was studying any time, whatever chance I got, I would look at my cue card no matter where I was. So I'd study. That's how I did it. And I recommend people take the time and really study everything, because at the end of the day, now a lot of it you probably aren't going to come across, once you're licensed, but it's always good stuff to know. And you'll have the books. If you ever come across it, you can always reference it down the road.
Yeah, that's really great advice. And one of the things that I took mine about 2 months after I finished the course, but I was also in a circle of realtors and brokers. So I was kind of working with them on a day-to-day. I was with them. So I was seeing deals close. I was seeing how that process kind of worked. So for me, the hardest part was the mortgage section, like that whole piece on that. So just really understanding that whole thing, because it is broken out into sections. And so if you have a broker, or even, Steve, I don't want to, sell you out, pimp you out rather, but, Steve's also available, because I think it's just great to get some level of practical experience before you take the test, because real estate, it's a very trendy market. It's ups and downs. It's a buyer's market, then it's a seller's market. Understanding interest rates, banks have different programs that they offer that you might not be aware of. So just really understanding all of these things, that there are different programs in terms of options for you when you're ready to buy, or when you're ready to market that as a realtor. You want to be as informed as possible, because people want to feel comfortable with that kind of sale. People want to be comfortable.
Don't be intimidated by, the amount of stuff or things you have to study, because believe me, once you get into it, and once you're mentally into it, and it all just comes to you. It really does. So one of the ways I learned, matter of fact, when I got my license, no one even knew what I was doing. No one knew I was studying for real estate. I got my license and went to Greg Burton out of Burton Associates Real Estate, and he was shocked.
Yeah.
He's like, "Man, you got your license? You didn't tell me." Because during the time, I was also a mortgage broker. I don't know if you know that. I did mortgages for Countrywide Home Loans.
Okay.
And so, Countrywide during the time, they were the largest lenders. A lot of folks look back, you worked for Countrywide, weren't they caught up in a scam? And I tried to explain it to them this way. Well, first of all, every bank in the country did the same thing. They followed the same guidelines. All the banks were giving out those crazy loans.
Yeah.
Because they were mandated that it was okay to do that. Countrywide just happened to be the largest out of all of them. It's like if Michael Jordan got caught drunk driving, and then Tom got caught drunk driving, who's going to get the biggest story? Michael Jordan. So Countrywide being the largest lender, that's what all that was really about. But with Greg, Greg was shocked. And I used to do mortgages out of his office for Countrywide during the time. And that's where I first learned to do credit repair, to be honest with you. So I knew it from back then. Yeah. And I did it for Countrywide. So, I would be in Greg Burton's office, which was on Washington Street during the time. And so while I'm in there doing these loans, I'm watching some of the agents. And because I did the loan on the buyer or the seller, whoever it was, I would see the HUD statement. So I would see how much they were making. And I was like, wait a minute. I'm doing all right, but these guys are doing great.
Yeah.
So, I took my time, and I got my license, studied, and ended up going right back to him. And
now I hear that the broker's exam is much more difficult than a real estate exam. You took both, so
I don't agree with that. I think they're probably about the same.
Okay.
Back when I took it, the exam was actually similar. It was just more on the broker side. A lot of the same stuff that was on the regular real estate exam is some of the same stuff on the broker's exam, except it's just leaned towards the broker. So it's pretty much the same. And because of that, I kind of had a head start on it.
Yeah. No, that gives me good encouragement. I told you, I'm thinking about taking that exam too. So that encourages me to know it's not more difficult, No,
I didn't think it was that difficult. Now, tell you a quick story in how I became a broker. It's not like I got into real estate and all of a sudden, I want to be a broker and do this. The reason why I became a broker is I kind of was forced into it. So let's just back up. So, I'm working for WIOD during the radio back in the day. Radio One comes in, buys up everything. And, I'm working for both stations. Then they decide to sell. So long story short, I got into mortgages. Then I got into real estate working with Greg Burton. But when the market crashed, working at Countrywide, things got bad. Things started to slow down. And even while I was doing both for a short while, because it was okay to do that back then, I was doing mortgages and real estate. Working out of Greg Burton's office during the time, him and his wife, Dora, the phone would ring every day prior to the crash. And by the time the market crashed, the phone just stopped ringing. So, my papers, the papers started changing. I wasn't making as much money, and I couldn't afford to split my money with the office anymore. And I had to do something else. So if I would have stayed there, I would have probably died in real estate. I would have had to go get a regular job, which I didn't want to do because I love real estate so much during that time. So I was forced to take the broker's exam, get my broker's license, because I did not that I didn't want to, but I couldn't afford to split the money that I was splitting during that time. And that's how I became a broker. Never even thought about it one day until the market crashed.
That's good.
I mean, like I had no choice.
It's a great example though, honestly, because you didn't allow yourself to fail. You didn't quit. Yep. You didn't give up. You understood that there was an alternative solution, be it all difficult or whatever it has been, or expensive, because the test costs money, but you still stuck it out and stuck through it. And now here you are, serving as this real estate expert within the community, which I think is amazing. I think that you're such a great resource for people to tap into, and getting aligned with the credit repair stuff is just such a great first step, so it's kind of like soup to nuts, if for lack of a better term, you come in and get your credit straightened out so that you can accomplish the goal of home ownership within the community or wherever you so desire. So I think I think it's awesome. Now, before we close out, I want to make sure people are able to contact you. What is the best way for people to contact you now? Is it through a website or through a phone? What do you have?
Yeah, you could. I'll give out all of that. So if you need to reach me, you can reach me anytime, and I pick up the phone.
He does. That's the truth.
Yeah. Unless I'm on the other line, I'll always call you back. 617-590-2368. That's my personal cell phone line. Folks say, why do you give that out? At the end of the day, if there's going to be an issue, I can always block them. You know what I mean? But for business purposes, you can reach me anytime, 617-590-2368. If you're interested in credit repair, you can go online. You can either call me at that number, 617-590-2368, or you can go on the website and sign up at solutionstocredit.com, and that's solutions with an S, to credit.com. And there's some good information about, how to maintain and what we do and all of that on the website as well. So you can get that information. You can sign up. And one of the things I just want to say about the credit repair, one of the reasons, my lane, actually, I don't want to give it away to all the other companies out there, but
keep your secret recipe in-house.
The thing I have right now is my company is affordable. Most credit repair companies, you're paying several $100s up front, and you're paying, a good amount monthly. So when you come to me, and just to give you an example, I finished up a guy who came, he was one of my first customers in February. I just finished him up, and I started out very cheap. I only charged like $49 in February. I don't even think I did an upfront cost. So to get your credit repair at $49 monthly, I think he ended up paying maybe a couple of $100, if that.
Yeah.
You can't get that anywhere.
Right.
One of the top companies out there I know for a fact they charge $300 to $350, maybe even $400 up front, and then you're paying up to at least $99 a month, and it could take you a year to repair your credit.
It almost feels counterproductive to be paying that kind of money to repair your credit. You know, it's like, well, you're trying to break me to fix it.
It's kind of like you're in some type of warp time zone,
right?
And you know, you're trying to repair your credit, but all this money's going out the window while you're doing it.
Right.
So I try and make it affordable. Even when the prices creep up a little bit, they're still affordable. Early on, even though I was charging less money, I made no money. That just covered the website and some of the other fees that I have to pay to run the company.
Yeah.
So, so it wasn't about making money or anything like that. It was about just helping people and mainly helping out folks, because I know how it is. I've been there. And every now and then I kind of go back, not in a bad way, but for example, and these are the things, last thing I'll say about credit, you got to be careful too when you're shopping and you're using a store card and you spend money and you got automatic payments going on that go out. You got to remember, when you spend money, those payments go up. So this happened to me twice with Macy's where the payments went up, and I ended up being 30 days late for something like $5 or $10. Wow. So I made the phone call, though they removed it. It wasn't an issue because they could see my history. It's just not how I move. It does happen. So that's just one thing folks need to be aware of as well. And that's it. Any other questions or information, you give me a call at that number, log on to the website. And like Monet said, I also am a real estate broker. So if you're looking to buy or sell, I can help you with that and have a wealth of information when it comes to that as well.
That's amazing. Well, Steve, thanks so much for coming on the show. We are super grateful. I'm sure everybody listening has really been able to benefit and get some guidance from you. Your information will also be posted at the end of the show too, for everyone to take a look at, so that they can contact you directly as well. And thanks so much, man. I'm sure that the conversation is not over. We'll be talking a little bit more as things progress. Mm-hmm. So I thank you so much for coming on, and I'll listen to
Thank you.
Gousby,
thank you. Much appreciated.
All right.
Thank you. Yep.
It is now time to elevate.
Time to motivate them.
Let's engage. It is now time to elevate.